What's up, it's your boy Jim Jefferies, an Australian comedian that made his career in America and still lives there.
What the fuck is a kilometer?
A career which mainly exists on fart and dick jokes, and a really good program that explores certain issues from different perspectives in other countries, even though the program is heavily biased and sometimes fudges around with the numbers a bit. Also, I've no idea how the Australian accent or dialect works, so every now and then I'm gonna speak like this, mate, in the video, and I hope you just enjoy, bud. So what is this Aussie boy gonna tell you about guns? Well, here's your boy Jim Jefferies on what Americans get wrong about the right to bear arms and why it is important. So first of all, what does the Second Amendment actually say? Well, the Second Amendment goes as follows. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So I want to make a few points about why gun rights are quite necessary, but also on how and why they should be implemented the right way. Now, I am not going to talk about what any of this means in a legal sense, or on what the founders actually meant. What I am going to talk about is how gun rights actually work in practice and how the protection of freedom by them actually works. This is partly because debating legal theory or what some old rich white guy a couple of hundred years ago said, in my eyes is boring, unhelpful and sustains the status quo, something everyone can see on both sides of the debate as not good, but also because I gotta throw some shrimp on a barbie, mate, so we can't make this video too long, eh? So first of all, let's dissect that sentence. So the first part talks about a well-regulated militia. Now, what does a well-regulated militia actually mean? And again, I don't mean in a legal or what the founders meant way. So what is a militia? Well, Google defines it as a military force that is raised from the civil population to supplement a regular army in an emergency. So it's not like most crazy right-wing people like to make it look, which is basically just a bunch of fat dudes running around the woods pretending not to be a gang.
How can we be a gang? We're white?
The entire idea of a militia is that it fits in with a larger military structure, like I fit in with the Hollywood elite. But the fact is that you can't adequately and effectively lead a military campaign without any kind of standardization or strategical organization. This means that a well-regulated militia should have the same kind of equipment, training, leadership structure and logistical organization as all the others in that organization. Not a bunch of random dudes having all kinds of different weapons with all kinds of different training methods and training standards. They even figured this out in the ancient and medieval world. The ancient militia armies of Athens had all the same training, same structure and some kind of armor standardization, even though there was some difference in the amount of armor every soldier had access to, seeing as militia members had to buy their own equipment. And in the Middle Ages, the English crown famously instructed that on every holiday and other festive occasion there would be the ability to practice archery, so that these archer militias could be used in a war. This famously created the English longbowmen. In other words, militia always are created as an extension of the greater military organization. So the only well-regulated militia in the United States is the National Guard. But that's not what many people imagine when they think about a well-regulated militia. Because most of the time these militias are supposed to be able to protect their own community, which means there should be a clear connection to that community, something the National Guard absolutely doesn't have, seeing as sometimes they actually beat the shit out of that community. So how do you make a well-regulated militia that also protects its community? Well, so let's look at what is in my eyes the perfect example. Switzerland. Switzerland actually has a well-regulated militia formed by the people. It is mandatory for every able Swiss man to do military service, and for women this is voluntary, because feminism means that women and men get treated equally. While in military training, the recruit will be trained in combat and will be assigned a unit. This unit will be made up of people from his own area. This is because after his military service, every man has the option to bring his military equipment home, including the weapons. For a while this wasn't an option but a must. The reason the Swiss do this is so that in case of a war, every unit can link up together and actually form a militia that is able to protect the entirety of Switzerland as a part of a larger military organization and strategy. This is what an actual well-regulated militia looks like, and is one of the reasons why around 2 million Swiss people own guns. That's a whole lot of guns, buddy. More than there are actually koalas in Australia, mate. This is actually true. Please help the koala. I put a link in the description of an organization that helps koalas from dying out. Please help. because are awesome, they have chlamydia. Now, back to the video. So now I've explained the first part, I would like to explore the second part of the Second Amendment. What is the second part of the Second Amendment? Well, let's go over it again. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What I mean by the second part is, to the security of a free state. What is a free state? So first of all, there are different ways of thinking about a free state. This is partly because there are basically two ways of thinking about a state. The first one is an obvious one. This definition goes according to Google as follows: a nation or territory considered as an organized political community under one government. And then there is a second way of thinking about a state, which Google defines as the particular condition that someone or something is in at a specific time. In other words, how you are at any specific time. So what happens when we add freedom to this? Well, let's go over the two definitions of a state again, but now we add freedom. If we add freedom to the first way of thinking, we get a political community which is free to decide its own political prerogative on its own nation or territory. Basically a government which is not controlled by an organization outside itself. What happens when we add freedom to the second way is that we get an individual that can be in a free state. Basically a particular condition where a person is completely able to do what that person wants without any barriers, except of course if it interferes with someone else's free state. But there's still a third way you can think about a free state. This is basically what happens when you combine the first two ways I explained together. This would look like a state as in a political community where an individual can be in a free state. Like I said before, the combination of the two. When you look at this free state in all its context, it becomes quite clear to why guns are quite important. In most American arguments about guns, there is a major point most people don't see. So, first of all, there is this idea that gun rights protect from tyranny. Even though this is kinda true, most people still make a mistake here, because they are wrong on how tyranny comes to be. You can also link this back to the three kinds of a free state, in which case there are three kinds of tyranny. The first tyranny comes when one nation tries to control another. The kind of gun rights that protect a free state from this kind of tyranny is the well-regulated militia we explored with the Swiss, because the Swiss kind of gun rights can easily defend a state from an outside force, which makes gun rights a fat dinkum handy tool, mate, protect from this kind of tyranny. Again, I'm so sorry for the horrible accent. Then there's a second kind of tyranny that can affect a free state. So let's imagine live in a country without a tyrannical government and complete individual freedoms except for gun rights. But the place in that country you live in is consumed by crime and you don't have the right to defend yourself because you don't have any gun rights. All the while your government isn't tyrannical, but basically completely incompetent or unwilling to protect you. Wouldn't that person live under tyranny? You definitely wouldn't live in a free state, right? And this kind of situation where a person lives under tyranny can happen at any time, like I explained in this video. You need guns to secure a free state for yourself. And the third way of thinking about tyranny in a free state is a combination of the two. Now here we see again that people don't really understand how governments become tyrannical. The fact is that governments don't just turn tyrannical, because it is quite difficult to imagine any government, especially the American one, turning tyrannical. Even when it was governed by Trump. To which conservatives always say, yeah, but it might be one day. In my honest opinion, this point makes conservatives always look really stupid. First of all, the fact that you think some dudes with guns can fight the US government is ridiculous. But the fact is, governments don't just turn tyrannical. The way governments actually turn tyrannical is that they are so incompetent they fail, in which case thugs who either already have gotten their hands on weapons in illegal ways, like the Nazis, or thugs that seize weapons the quickest when the chaos breaks out, like the Bolsheviks, who when the Russian Civil War started were quick to seize major military facilities to secure weapons. Either way, a bunch of thugs take control. But both these tactics won't work when the population is already legally armed and when the distribution of military equipment and facilities are highly decentralized, because of the fact that every single town has its own well-regulated militia. Because if the common people already have guns and then some thugs try wrongly influencing the democratic system like the Nazis, the common people can use their guns to protect themselves and the democratic system. And when an all-out rush for military facilities happens, like with the Bolshevik, the common militia, who don't agree with these views, can protect these facilities in their own areas with with their guns. Basically, owning guns gives the normal decent people in a society a chance to fight back against extremists in a critical point in that society. Critical points like when the government absolutely fails and completely ceases to function are actually less rare than you might think, especially if you are Belgian, then this is just another Tuesday. Okay, so now I've explained the first and second part of the Second Amendment, let's talk about the third part. The right of the people to keep and bear arms. Now, the keep part is very easy to understand. Now, first, let's tackle the keep part. This basically refers to being able to keep arms. Now, to be fair, there's no specification which arms and with what training, but for the rest, it's very simple. To bear arms, however, is a little bit more complicated. Bear, in this context, doesn't refer to that fuzzy animal that looks like the leader of China, but to someone being able to carry something. This can be material thing, like a pizza, but also non-material things, like pain. Now, I think that when it comes to the Second Amendment, both these ways apply. The first way is simple. Americans are allowed to carry a gun. Now, the capacity they are able to wield that gun is debatable. Maybe it is all the time, or only when the security of a free state is in danger. But I would argue this also refers to the responsibility you bear when carrying and in general owning a gun. Basically, you have the responsibility that your gun doesn't get used in a wrong way, but also that when you have to use this gun to defend the security of a free state, you are actually able to do it. This means that you can't just own a gun to have some fun with the boys on the weekend, but also when push comes to shove, you have to take the responsibility that comes with owning that gun. When you decide you want to bear a gun, you also have to consider the responsibility you carry when bearing a gun. You don't just carry a gun as a gun owner, but also the responsibility that comes with it. Just like you don't just carry a knife around as a knife owner, you also have the responsibility to use that knife when you want to do some cooking and cut up the aubergines, but also to not stab anyone, accidentally drop it, lose it around a kid's play park, and to not cut pizza with it like this. I also think that when you say you carry a gun for the fact you want to protect your family, community and a free state, you also have to be fair and realize this goes farther than just keeping and bearing a gun responsibly. But you also have to acquire the other skills which allow you to protect your family, community and a free state. Even though I think it is completely necessary to be able to bear arms to protect your family adequately, I think it is even more necessary to know how to swim or first aid. It is ridiculous to think that you spend hours of time training to protect your family from a home intruder, but have no idea how to save a family member from drowning in a swimming pool. But this also goes the other way around. It is all fine and well if you do know first aid and can swim, but if you are absolutely defenseless when attacked, that's also weird and ridiculous. You see guys, I'm being fair to both sides. You're all fucking weird. I'm being fair fucking dinkum, mate. Now, how can you responsibly own and carry a gun? Well, there's not one answer. It basically all depends on what situation you as an individual are in and how your community reacts to your situation. Let's say you're a parent and God forbid your child has mental health problems. I mean real mental health problems, not just an anime fan. How responsible is it for you to own guns? This all depends on the mental health support system that is available for your child and what kind of gun infrastructure is around you. Is it for instance a possibility while you and your family go to this difficult moment to give/store your guns with someone else, for instance a neighbor, while still providing enough security for you and your family? And before you say of course it is, I would like you to remember that some people live in the middle of nowhere where bears or other wild animals are a real threat, or in a crime infested neighborhood where you need to be able to protect yourself immediately. In both cases you don't have the time to run to your neighbor's house or call the police, because it would take much too long for the police or your neighbor to turn up, if they even turn up. Then there's also the question who is able to decide if you are able to be a responsible gun owner. Is it only the individual, him or herself, the community around that person, or the larger organization like the national, provincial or state government? Or is it the well-regulated militia, which makes the question come up how far or down in the command chain of the well-regulated militia you have to go to find someone who can decide who is responsible or not? I don't know how to answer this question and think again it really depends on the situation, like where you live, the way the community, larger political organization and military organization interact with each other and all that. And now on to the fourth and last part of the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The shall not be infringed part is what we are going to explore now. So what is meant by infringed? Now, because I'm quite lazy, I'm just gonna go with a Google definition again. So what does Google say? Because like every single other dumb bloke, I am just gonna go to Google. Google, eh? Well, Google defines infringed as actively break the terms of a law, agreement, etc. or act as to limit or undermine something, encroach on. Now this makes it pretty clear that you shouldn't try to undermine or encroach on this amendment. Don't limit the right of the people to bear arms. But this makes the entire rest of the Second Amendment kinda a contradiction. Is a person's right to bear arms infringed if whatever gun that person chooses to bear is not able to be integrated in a well-regulated militia? Because the training and logistical organization of that militia can support every single gun or weapon. How much should a government outlaw that specific gun? Should you be allowed to train with it and keep it as a personal gun, even though it makes you less efficient? And what if you have proven you can't be trusted with responsibility of bearing arms because you are closely aligned with a violent extremist group that threatens a free state, even though you never do anything wrong and stay completely in your rights when you support these groups? Should your right to bear arms also not be infringed? Or if you are a proven criminal or have mental health issues, when does infringement become good? My basic question is, what happens with infringement of the right to bear and keep arms when it infringes on the well-regulated militia or the security of a free state? But again, this also can be turned around, because let's not forget that I explained in the previous points that the right to bear arms definitely does protect a free state. So making it more difficult for someone to have this right, you are also infringing on the protection of a free state. And what if one small community decides to not infringe certain guns and infringe others because it suits their community better, while it doesn't benefit the larger community of the nation? These are all questions you have to ask whilst thinking about guns. Now, I've got to bring a disabled friend to a prostitute, so I'm going to do the outro now, mate. So this was my video on gun rights. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any feedback, please let me know in the comments. This was your boy Jim Jefferies. Sorry for the horrible accent. See you later.